Hello, good evening, and welcome to Lusail International Circuit in Qatar for the 7th and penultimate round of Season 2 of the Virtual Motorsport Series Platinum Split here on Le Mans Ultimate. My name is Edward Hunter. Alongside me is broadcast director Nicolas Domino. We have also got Ollie Shakespeare ready to fill in when I have to go down for dinner in the middle of hypercar qualifying, but I will be back for the start of the race. My name is Edward Hunter, by the way, in case I neglected to mention that earlier. And yeah, it's penultimate round. Of course, still one more round to go for the overall championship after today, but this is the decider for the Sprint Cup, of course. So in both the hypercar and LMGT3 classes, with 5 drivers that could take overall glory in both classes, of course. But anyway, before we just a few minutes of practice left to go, we can maybe have a look at the overall standings first, I believe is what Nicolas wanted me to show you. Here we go. As you can see, Jene Simoncic, having won the last 2 rounds at Monza and Spa, has taken the championship lead overall by 4 points from Fabio Grigoletto at the top of Hypercar. Nicolas Huben did lead the championship after winning the endurance round at Fuji. He has dropped to third, another 10 points behind Grigoletto. Then it's Sven Gielhed, another 20 points down in 4th position overall. And Michi Hoyer, if it finishes like this at the end of Le Mans in 2 weeks' time at Circuit de la Sarthe, Hoyer would take the final prize money winning position in 5th, just 2 points ahead of Marco Di Buono. Then it is James Baldwin, also closely behind in 7th, having missed a couple of races, but he did win, of course, quite memorably at Bahrain. Feel free to count me in anytime now, Nicholas. Hello, good evening, and welcome once again to the Lusail International Circuit in Qatar for the 7th and penultimate round of Season 2 of the VMS Platinum Split, the very top tier that our Le Mans Ultimate Championship has to offer. This is the GT3 field being released ahead of their qualifying session, and of course, it is a title deciding day for the Sprint Cup, given it's the final sprint round of the season here at Qatar. There is our overall championship leader, Patrick Schindler, but he's not the Sprint Cup leader. That title at the moment is held by Luke Whitehead in the Ferrari 296. There he is, just ahead of him on the row, right behind Thomas Lydon in the BMW. And Whitehead, of course, has won the last 2 races on the trot, has been a real force of nature, particularly Spa and Monza, but also throughout the season he's set a total of, I think, 5 pole positions so far. He's only been beaten once by Schindler at Sebring, if memory serves. So will be interesting to see if he can make it 6 out of 5, 6 out of 7 poles, wouldn't it? Okay, that would be the best possible outcome for him here. But with the Sprint Cup on the line, of course, only a handful of points between the pair of them. Now might be a good opportunity before the flying laps start. Just have a brief look at the situation in the Sprint Cup. Here you go. That is the Hypercar Sprint Cup, of course. We'll be seeing them out a bit later, but Simoncic leading Grigoletto by 7 points there. And here is the GT3's Whitehead leading Schindler by Also by 6 points, unless I'm very much mistaken there. And then Prendergast on 67 points. He is mathematically in contention, but he needs to win, and that would put him on 92 points. So he would need Schindler to be 7th or worse, and for Luke Whitehead to not score anything at all. Because if they tie, then Whitehead's got more wins than Prendergast. Oh no, they'd have 2 wins each, but I think it would come down to second places. And again, Whitehead would beat Prendergast, given I don't think Prendergast has got a single second place to his name, as Whitehead's got 1 or 2 from earlier in the season, at Bahrain in particular, where he finished behind Timotei Antonovsky. But yeah, you can see further back, Remy Delorme only 17 points behind Prendergast, and then Wojtek Polesny, Marin Bessier, Sebastian Wunsch, Timotei Antonovsky, who I don't think is here tonight, Thomas Leiden in 9th, and Michel Rodriguez rounds out the top 10. It's only the top 3, though, that will get prize money. As you see further down the sprint cut, Fabian Ballet on 11 points, Mark Veit 7, Callum Kreutzmann having his first race appearance in a while. He's on 6 points, Regan Mitchell on 3, then it's Fingard Liskovitz Kush yet to get on the scoring board. So let's go back to qualifying, as I believe our front runners are in the middle of their first flying laps here at Losail, of course. It's a man-made circuit. I believe they have artificial grass on the outskirts of the circuit to try and prevent sand encroaching on the track as much, which is obviously a common problem in the Middle East. Marin Bessier, there you can see 30.3 in the first sector, which is the predominantly high speed one, with just the two ending with the two 90-degree corners of 4 and 5. In sector 2, the more twisty sector, of course, comprising turns 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, which Bessier, I think, is just going downhill towards 9, and now towards the left-hand hairpin of turn 10. Very tricky corner to spot your breaking point for. Bessier doing a good job in that Aston Martin. Very nearly got on the podium at Spa. Bessier, who struggled with tyre wear early in the early rounds of the season, has recently really gotten it together. 49.0, always a strong qualifier though. He is the reigning GT3 contender champion to boot, is the Frenchman then. But let's see at the end of these first runs where everybody shakes out then, as just the final sector left to be negotiated here. It's another high-speed one. As we cut back to Whitehead, who's actually gone significantly faster than Bessier through the first sector. The Ferrari 296 powers towards the line. What's the benchmark time going to be? It's a 1:55.7. So that is very solid indeed. Leiden, 1.3 seconds off the pace in the BMW. Schindler, just over half a second off, under 6/10 off almost exactly. Bessier goes third fastest, another 3/10 off Schindler. Then we got the Aston Martin of Veit, the Ford Mustang of Sebastian Wunsch. No sign of Kieran Prendergast, third in the championship, so clearly he's taken his loss and the incident with Luke Whitehead at the start of Spa very hard indeed, and decided not to show up at all, because he was practicing on this circuit yesterday. So I can't think why he wouldn't be taking part tonight, unless he had a clash of commitment, of course. But yeah, it's a big shame to lose our reigning champion, Kieran Prendergast, and we hope we see him at Le Mans in 2 weeks' time. But there we go, Whitehead, Schindler, Bessier, your top 3 at the moment. But we're yet to see either of the Porsches of Krups and Fingard. We know there's been a couple of BOP, balance of performance updates, that have tried to, the Porsches really struggle, especially in dry conditions. And we're likely to get those here in the desert in the Middle East. But yeah, Sebastian Wunsch, I don't think that first lap time, or maybe he was out a bit later than everybody else, but whatever the case, that first lap time, I think has been invalidated because he left the track. So the German has set about another effort, the runner-up in the GT category last season. He is, of course, fairly high up in the sprint championship, isn't he? In 6th position behind Bessier on 34 points. So yeah, Seb Wunsch could well, I think it's going to be a bit of a long shot, given he's about 16 points off of Romy Delorme in 4th, and then I think he mathematically is not really in the fight with Prendergast for 3rd in the sprint cup, but certainly for overall top 5, I think much more likely for Sebastian Wunsch, given I believe that he is there already. So we see him up in a little bit down in the middle sector, but 4/10 off on the first. So this is looking like a solid lap, and it puts him P4, slightly behind Thomas Leiden there. So good effort from Sebastian Wunsch. But Schindler has gone a lot faster on his second lap as Fingard starts his first flying run. He did want to use the Lamborghini for today's round, the Lamborghini Huracan, but the server said no. He is stuck with the Porsche 911 that he crashed last time out at Spa, that he's crashed multiple times this season, unfortunately. But yeah, Luca Fingard has certainly tried to triumph through adversity as Schindler kicks up a little bit of gravel there on the exit of, I think that was turn 9. And yeah, you can see Schindler is less than 2 tenths now behind Luke Whitehead. So this is a mission critical for him. Yes, Seb Wunsch, as I was remembering in my head, is 5th in the overall standings, about 5 points ahead of Remy Delorme. So that is absolutely crucial for him, but he's not bettered his 3rd place in the endurance race at Fuji so far this season. His next best result in the sprint rounds was his 4th, in the opening round at Imola. He was 5th though in Sebring and at Spa last time out. But anyway then, we are 3 minutes in to, oh no, actually it would be, it was 25-minute qualifying session, so we're about 7 minutes in, halfway through the session. The clock runs out with 10 minutes, just under 10 minutes to go, isn't it? And that's when we let the hypercars out to play. So everybody's starting to run out of time here. It is just under 2 minutes per lap as Whitehead goes into the pit lane. Is that 155.3 that he's improved to gonna be enough for pole position? We'll have to wait and see then. One people watching, by the way, which is great to see qualifying. And there we see Remy Delorme launches his way up to 3rd. The Frenchman, part of the VEC Hypercar reigning championship team, Go Team, the Swedish squad, but he is the French driver. Of course, as somebody has binned it at turn 2 and drifted off into the background. Didn't quite see who that was. It was Thomas Lydon facing the wrong way, and he's teleported back to the pits. So let's get an instant replay on that. Through turn 1 he goes. And does he hit the wall? Let's hope there's not too much damage. Gets a little bit far over the curb. The back end steps out, and a big amount of tire smoke avoids the ambulance on the inside, blocked by the wall, thankfully. But yeah, teleporting back to the pit lane. So I think no damage incurred. Lydon should just about be able to get out and do another lap, but that's a bad sign for the Polish driver in the BMW. He's trying to get into the mix towards the top 5 in the overall championship, but he's missed quite a number of rounds. Unfortunately for him, 3 to be exact, that he's missed so far this season. But in an 8-round championship, that's almost half of it. But anyway, where is the challenge going to come from? Well, it looks like we've got a fight for pole between Whitehead and Schindler, and a fight for 3rd. A very close fight between the 2 Aston Martins of Delorme and Bessières. The Aston Martin Vantages have been doing really, really well, actually, in the support categories. The gold and silver split for Liam Rance led quite a lot of the races. Maroon Bessières goes well off track there through the final. I think that's just to end the middle sector there. Schindler comes to a halt, and let's see a replay of what happened to him. So has he done the exact same thing? No, it looks good through... that must be, yeah, turn 12, 13, and then I think a little bit through 14. They both dip off track, and that invalidates their laps there right near the end of the 5.4 kilometer circuit, yeah, per lap. Of course, this circuit has existed since around about 2009, when it was first used for, I believe, as it was then known, GP2 Asia, but it's now, of course, the Formula 2. It was the sort of Asian leg winter series for the F1 support category. And since then, it's been used in, of course, most notably World Endurance Championship, which is why it's in Le Mans Ultimate, and, of course, for Formula 1 for the Qatar Grand Prix. There we go. A reminder showing up on screen there that Patrick Schindler, who is 2nd in the Sprint Cup, good 7 points or so behind Luke Whitehead, can win if he wins the race, or he finishes 2nd with Whitehead 5th or below, and then you can see the rest of the permutations just beneath that. But as we see Schindler stationary in the pits, I believe along with everybody else, we might now see a pause before the hypercars go out. So I think there is that sort of 5-minute pause, but it seems none of the GT3s are improving out there, I don't think, because they're all stationary in the... Yeah, and they're all stationed in the pit lane. And there's your reminder for Luke Whitehead. He can win if he wins the race or finishes second with Schindler third or below. So it's looking, obviously, with Luke Whitehead going in ahead, he has got the more preferable chances, even though in the overall championship, Schindler leads by 3 points, having finished ahead of Whitehead in the endurance race by a couple of positions at Fuji. So that is why the situation is almost reversed in the overall championship. So yes, even if Whitehead seals the Sprint Cup, it's absolutely pivotal that he goes into Circuit de la Sarthe in 2 weeks' time with the biggest points advantage, or even ahead of Patrick Schindler to begin with, if at all possible. So it is really coming down to a two-horse race in both championships, it must be said. Because speaking of which, we're a couple of minutes away from the hypercars being released. So let's have a reminder of how they stack up in the Sprint Cup. Jene Simčić 7 points ahead of Fabio Grigoletto. So it's a similar case there of winner takes all between the two. Sven Gielhed is in third, 9 points ahead of Nicolaus Huben. So Huben, I think, is the only driver mathematically that can stop Gielhed from taking the $15 for third, but it's a full 60 for the winner, 25 for second. And that's the same case in GD3. James Baldwin is in fifth on 40 points. Great to see him taking part again. Marco De Buono in sixth. Michi Hoyer is seventh. Daniele Varinelli, eighth. Mikolai Hutrushki is ninth. And Arda Erchan, 10th, of course, on 11 points. So if you're outside of the top 10, you're really just fighting for pride in terms of the Sprint Cup. But there is the overall standings that we shouldn't forget about either. Henrik Gamble, 9 points to his name. Jules Neal has got all 8 points in that last round at Spa. That's launched him from last to 12th. Walton Atrilla is 13th with Paul Lepere, our last man in the points. 6 of them in 14th, equal with Atrilla. Then it's Joe McCauley, Jack McConnell, David Levy, all yet to see any points to their tally. And I don't think we've seen any of them for quite a while in this season. So I don't want to say they've given up, but they've certainly given up the ghost, if not the chances of scoring in the championship. So with dinner, I think, on the horizon, now might be a good point to get my co-commentator, Ollie Shakespeare, into the commentary box. So I'll just send her a message there. So I think we've now just been joined by Ollie Shakespeare as the hypercars are waiting to exit the pit lane here. And of course, Ollie, welcome to Qatar. As there we go, green light at the end of the pit lane, and they all filter out at once. So nobody wasting any time as Simčić does a lovely little burnout in his Peugeot. But he was saying just before this, Jene Simčić, that the Peugeot has been given, I think, 23 kilograms of ballast. The Ferraris were given 10 kilograms, and the Toyota, no ballast at all. If you're Mikolai Hutrushki or James Baldwin, you're going to be fancying your chances of pole here. But of course, Jene Simčić has taken 4 poles so far this season. He is ferociously quick, and we can never discount him. But yeah, Grigoletto will be desperate to get back on terms with him in that Sprint Cup now that he's 7 points behind him. It's winner takes all, isn't it, Ollie?
It absolutely is, Ed. It feels like it's not long been since I was last commentator on a race here in Qatar. Obviously, we had the race for the silver split here just a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, nice to be.
Friday.
The silver split was Friday, but their race most recently was in Bahrain. Their Qatar race was the round before that. So it's been 3 weeks since I was last here at the Losail International Circuit. And in fact, here we go. We have the Sprint Cup permutations up on screen right now. So that is what Fabio Grigoletto, the man being shown there in the number 50 Ferrari 499P, needs to take home the Sprint Cup Championship this evening here in Qatar.
Yeah, and of course, all of Tatum Esports and a big significant portion of Italy, I imagine, will be cheering Fabio Grigoletto on. But let's talk about the Slovenian as well in that Peugeot. It stands out like a sore thumb because he's the only one in it at this point in the season. He also sort of just needs to make sure he doesn't lose 7 points to Grigoletto. They've both got 2 wins in the Sprint Cup, but in terms of second places, I believe Simčić has got 1 to his name, whereas I don't think Grigoletto has got any second places. He did get 18 points in the endurance race at Fuji, of course, but that was for finishing 5th And of course, the endurance race doesn't count for the Sprint Cup altogether, so it's completely irrelevant until 2 weeks' time when we get to Circuit de la Sof. But anyway, a few comments in the chat. Callum Cripps says 55.3, and he's gives an exclamation. He's quite surprised that Whitehead was able to achieve that. But yeah, that is Whitehead's 6th pole position of the season, I believe, out of 7 races in that Ferrari. So that is impressive. Even when the Ferrari wasn't the best car, he was always absolutely wringing the neck of that in qualifying. And yeah, only less than 2/10 though ahead of Schindler, so that could be a very, very close contest. We see everybody warming up their tyres as the sun going down here through the final corner, Ollie. So that is interesting to see. And Baldwin, you sense he's come back because he saw that the Toyota didn't get any ballast, whereas all his rivals do have BOP ballast added to their car.
Yeah, it's a really good opportunity for James. Obviously, he's missed the last couple of rounds of the Pro Series just for, I mean, various reasons. One being that he was commentating for British GT at Spa, which I would say is a more than fair enough reason to not come and race some pixels around a virtual track, if I'm being honest. But he's going to be looking to get back up towards the sharp end of the grid here this evening, because it's something that he loves to do. He loves winning races, he loves being competitive, and right now that Toyota is absolutely the right car to be in for that.
Yeah, sorry, I've just literally been called down for dinner, so I'll just say this to you now to save me typing a message for you in chat. But I'll leave it for the rest of the hypercar qualifying. Yeah, 10 minutes, I better eat quickly. But anyway, I'll leave you for the rest of the hypercar qualifying in the capable hands of Mr. Ollie Shakespeare. Take it away, Ollie.
Yeah, so on board with James Baldwin now up through the top section of this track. Lots of these sweeping corners here at Qatar. Downforce loads are high. And a track where the entry and minimum apex speeds of all the corners are really, really important. But so's the exit. The corners here feeding almost directly one into the next, and sometimes it is easy to lose your way around the track. I must admit it's something I've done myself a couple of times at Qatar where I've turned right into a wall rather than turning left to where the track goes. But this is looking very hooked up from James Baldwin here on his first lap. He's not quite there with the fastest sector times so far. He's been beaten in that first and second sector, not sure by who, but across the line it is going to be the first lap time, because the other Toyota, I believe that would have been of Mikolaj Utrisky, came into the pit lane, and it's Marco De Buono at the very top of the grid, a 37.959, just 0.02 of a second ahead of Niklas Huben. Now that is very, very impressive, an extremely tight gap at the top of the field there, closer even than the F1 qualifying at Hungary yesterday evening. As the rest of the lap times come in, and Simoncic, it's only 5th for Yerny Simoncic, 0.8 off the pace, has that 23 kilograms of ballast, really, really hurt him here. For him, the aim surely just has to be to finish ahead of Fabio Grigoletto, who is in the pit lane. Now this is interesting, is this driver's potentially scrubbing a set of tyres for the race on an outlap, and then taking a new set of tyres to the end of this qualifying session? That would be an incredibly interesting strategy if that is what we're seeing. Marco De Buono is down on his own lap time through the first sector. By 0.08 of a second he is down. It's not a lot. There can always be improvement. Flirting with the edge of the white line there. The track limits around Qatar set to strict. If all of those Michelin tyres cross that white line, the lap will be invalidated, and it's into the pit lane, interestingly, for Marco De Buono as well. James Baldwin, he set 2 fastest sectors, he's into the pit lane as well. So's Mikolaj Utrisky. What's going on here? Yerny Simoncic is not on any sort of lap. Surely he's going to be coming into the pit lane at the end of this one. He's 4 seconds down overall. Michi Hoyer on his outlap. We've also got Sven Gielhard and Fabio Grigoletto yet to complete a lap. Now, I'm very, very confused as to what the tyre strategy here is. Because all of the drivers came out and weaved on their outlaps. So have they done almost kind of like a half temperature cycle, and then taken them back to the pit lane to put them back into storage for the race potentially? That is very, very weird. Some drivers coming down the pit lane at the end of the formation, formation lap, sorry, prep lap, the out lap, and some drivers doing a full push lap and then coming in at the end of a full push lap, not even finishing their push lap. So a variety of strategies going on here. Everyone, of course, on the medium tyres. The softs are not in the allocation for Qatar in-game. Because obviously it is naturally quite a hot place in the world, and those softs operate at a very, very high temperature. So they would just melt in these kind of conditions. And it's a fastest first sector for Michi Hoyer, a man who we haven't really seen at the sharp end of this Pro Series Platinum split so far this season. A vast, vast difference to Season 1, where, of course, him and Jernej Simičić are pretty much trading punches throughout the entire season to see who would come out on top. Michi Hoyer, fastest in the first sector. Can he follow it up with a good middle sector as well, leaving potentially a little bit of time on the table on the exit there, utilising the slip angle that you can use in these hypercars. We can really clearly see it through the apexes there. The rear end of the car drifting a few degrees behind where the front axle was turned into. It's a 10th down in the middle sector on the overall fastest, but it is fastest in the first for Michi Hoyer. It's an improvement on his personal best in the middle. Not that I think he's set a previous sector time, so that's showing up as green just because he's completed a sector. Is there going to be a lap here for Michi Hoyer that could spring him towards the front of the grid? As Grigoletto goes fastest, Fabio Grigoletto, the man who could win it all here in the Sprint Championship, goes to the top of the table. Michi Hoyer in fourth, 4 tenths off the pace, but it's Grigoletto, the man from Italy, who is leading the way provisionally with just 1 minute and 30 seconds left on the clock. And this could be huge for him. Grigoletto provisionally on pole. Jernej Simičić provisionally in 8th place. 8th place. It would need a monumental race effort from Jernej Simičić if it were to stay this way. But James Baldwin is challenging. He is in the hunt. Overall, about 0.03 of a second down on Fabio Grigoletto at the moment. Not even that, about 0.02 of a second down on Fabio Grigoletto at the moment. This could be incredibly close. It needs to be a perfect final sector from James Baldwin. Is he going to get disrupted by the Ferrari in front? No, I don't think he is, but he might get a little bit of a slipstream, which could make or break his lap. James Baldwin to the line. Will it be pole? It's going to be close. It's pole position for James Baldwin provisionally by 0.03 of a second. Marco De Buono goes to less than 0.02 behind. Grigoletto finding himself bumped down the field. And Jernej Simičić is on a lap. He's on a good, strong lap here. 0.03 of a second. Down in the first sector. If he can find 0.04 of a second through these next 2 sectors, he will be right there with Fabio Grigoletto. And if he can't finish ahead of him, all he needs to do is finish 1 place behind him, 1 or 2 places behind him, and Jernej Simičić can still win this. But it's 5.5 tenths down through the middle sector for Jernej Simičić. Those grip-focused corners in the middle sector. The ballast clearly kicking in, kicking up some gravel over the rumble strips there. I think he'll be okay on track limits because of how the white line has been pushed back and the width of these hypercars. But at best, this is going to be, I mean, it will be an improvement for Jernej Simičić likely, but it's not going to see him to the front of the grid. It might be P6 for Jernej Simičić across the line. It's a 1:38.8. I don't think, has he even improved? He hasn't, I think he did improve, but it was only marginally. And James Baldwin has gone again. And not only has he gone again, he's going faster. Again, 0.08 of a second up on his own lap. James Baldwin returning with a bang to the SimGrid Platinum split. Around the final corner for James Baldwin. Could this be an even better pole position lap provisionally? No, it's not quite. And Marco De Buono goes to 0.09 behind James Baldwin. 0.09 of a second separates them at the front of the pack for the penultimate round of the season and the final round of the Sprint Cup. And Sven Gielhard still isn't finished either. He's improving. It could be a 5th place start for Sven Gielhard. How much has he managed to find in the final sector? If it's a good final sector, he might just trouble Hoban for 4th. No, it's not quite. And I think he is going to stay 6th in the end, losing too much time in the final sector. So there it is. 9/10 covering the top 9 drivers, and only a 10th covering the top 4 here at the Lusail International Circuit in Qatar. What an incredible final Sprint Cup qualifying from the hypercars here in the SimGrid Platinum Split, where James Baldwin takes pole on his return to the series. What an incredible lap.
Absolutely. Pulling it out right when he needed it at 1:37.8, just 9 thousandths clear of De Bueno. Both Baldwin and De Bueno have got one sprint race win in their VMS careers to their name. But Grigoletto behind in 3rd is looking very, very good for the Sprint Cup Championship. Remember, if he finishes 3rd, he needs Simic 7th or below. He's qualified 9th on the grid. So work for Yerne to do. This could be very, very tense, not just deciding the lead of the overall championship, especially if Hoban is able to get involved as well, but the lead of that Sprint Cup, who's going to get $60 at the end of today, and who's going to finish 2nd and come away with just 25, and also 3rd place with Gielhard currently in that position, fighting with Hoban for the final $15, I believe.
There are battles up and down the grid for the Sprint Cup positions here this evening. Sven Gielhard and Nicholas Hoban qualifying just 2 places apart. Michi Hoyer splits them. And of course, Jerne Simoncic left with everything to do to try and claw back that Sprint Cup championship.
Yeah. Anyway, Ollie, so I'll just talk us through the grid then. James Baldwin, pole position with Marco De Bueno joining him on the front row. On row 2, it's Fabio Grigoletto in 3rd with Nicolas Hoban joining him for company in the 51 Ferrari. Michi Hoyer lines up 5th, just ahead of 3rd place man in the Sprint Cup, Sven Gielhard.
Teams and drivers go
in
to
7th,
the grid
as we
for a race
transition into
start.
darkness, is Daniele Farinelli with Mikolaj Trushkin, the Toyota, in 8th. Jerne Simoncic down in 9th, his worst qualifying of the season, with Paul Lepere joining him on row 5 in 10th. Then it's the GT3s. Luke Whitehead on his another pole position is 6th of the season, with Patrick Schindler, his title rival, right behind him, less than 2/10 off his pace. Remy Delorme and Marin Bessiem in the Aston Martins make up row 7. On row 8, it's Thomas Lydon, the BMW, with Sebastian Wunsch in the Mustang for close company. Callum Cripps in the Porsche makes up row 9, just ahead of Michel Rodriguez. Great to see Callum Cripps back in the fray, with Fabien Ballet on row 10, and the second Porsche of Luca Fingard joining him on the back of row 10. So that should be all 20 drivers, I believe, as Ollie Shakespeare has left us to go focus on much-needed studies, if I'm not mistaken. So we wish him all the best. Another person we should also wish all the best is the man who accompanied me at the very, very beginning of VMS as far back as 6 months ago, and that is Mr. Braden Hill, who always calls the Jerne Simoncic when he was on pole the pole sister. And unfortunately, Braden has very recently been involved in a quite nasty car accident that gave him a bit of a concussion. Luckily, he's on the mend, but it was obviously a big scare. So we wish Braden all the best in the United States and for a speedy recovery. If you're watching this, Braden, we miss you, buddy. All the best. So then, as the cars populate into the night at Lusail in Qatar, it is Baldwin that's going to lead us away in the desert, but don't forget about De Bueno alongside him. It is, though, Grigoletto in 3rd that most of our attention is going to be on. Grigoletto, obviously 3rd would still be enough at the moment to win the title, but you can't count out Simoncic gaining a few positions to feel really safe. Either 2nd or 1st has got to be a priority for the Italian then, as he lines up alongside, of course, his countryman De Bueno, with Hoban close behind. And don't forget Whitehead and Schindler are in private battle for victory. Whitehead's taken 2 wins this season, Schindler just the 1 in the Sprint Cup, if I'm not mistaken. So it is very much winner takes all, and Schindler has to find a way through to outfox Luke Whitehead here as they get going on the half formation lap for a rolling start over the start-finish line. Into the final corner they come through turn 16 Here we go. We've got an hour of racing ahead of us, and we will see 2 Sprint Cup champions crowned at the end of it then. But who is going to get the best launch off the line in Hypercar? Will it be Baldwin in that number 7 Toyota, or will it be De Bueno in the number 50
Green flag,
Ferrari
green flag.
499P? We get going. The Sprint Cup race, the final Sprint Cup race of the season, is underway in Losail, and it is Baldwin on the inside that has nailed the getaway here, with De Bueno having to filter out around the outside, and the Ferraris all spread out. De Bueno breaks late around the outside into turn 1. Huben trying to muscle past Gregoletto, but he's gone a little bit too deep, and he's stranded on the outside as they all filter through. Whitehead, by the way, has held on to the lead. Delorme has muscled his way past Patrick Schindler for second in GD3. So a fantastic start from the Frenchman, who runs second for the second race in a row. But look at this, De Bueno has cleared Baldwin for the lead, as I've been distracted by something that's not even on screen. But yeah, De Bueno outboxing through 4, 5, and 6 to get past James Baldwin, the Englishman. And now suddenly the Toyota driver has got a much harder job, as Gielhead is under attack in the background from, I believe, Michi Hoyer, trying to go alongside him as we see Hutrishki and Paul Lepere nearly making contact. There we go. Gielhead holds off Hoyer for P5, and that's crucial for Gielhead's hopes of finishing ahead of Huben, who's only 9 points behind him. As long as he finishes right behind him, that should be third in the championship. Meanwhile, here we go. Callum Cripps going for a move on Sebastian Wunsch, who's not made a great start. Callum Cripps has gotten through by hook or by crook as they go through, I believe that's turn 6, and uphill through sector 2 they come then. So the order in GD3 is Whitehead, Delorme, Schindler, Bessier, and then Leiden, who we're watching at the moment, trailing the Frenchman in front of him. And Callum Cripps into the top 6, which is brilliant to see. He had so many great performances last season. We didn't really get, other than Bahrain this season, where he finished P8, we've not really gotten to see a lot of Callum Cripps' heroics. Ahead of Sebastian Wunsch, who was 5th in the overall championship. He was the runner-up last season, who took a couple of wins. This is a fantastic performance, and Cripps and Wunsch have come to blows before in this championship. And very much looking like this is going to be an hour of fighting between the pair of them. Michelle Rodriguez in the background, and Fingard side by side with Fabien Ballet in the background. But look up front here, Bessier is going for Patrick Schindler. It's more pain for the German here, who loses another position just behind the ground. So they come. Leiden now is alongside him, and it's a double move. He's lost 2 positions in the space of less than 3 seconds there, and Patrick Schindler is shuffled back to 5th. Even Callum Cripps might want to go at him now. You can see the permutations that Schindler needs to win the Sprint Cup. They're getting further and further, with Whitehead now a good couple of seconds ahead of him, and 4 places ahead of him as well. It's looking very, very good for Luke Whitehead, but could Remy Delorme fancy a shot at stealing the lead off him? The Aston Martins have really come alive in the darkness here. Meanwhile, up front, it's still very much static between De Bueno, Baldwin, Grigoletto, Huben, and Gielhead there, who's starting to break away from Michi Hoyer and the rest of the pack, including Jerne Simojic, who you can just see at the back of the train, I think still in 8th position. He's gained 1 place. So let's remind ourselves, if he finishes in P8, he would need Grigoletto to be 5th or below. At the moment, Grigoletto is 3rd. So yeah, it's not working out for him at the moment. Grigoletto in 3rd, he needs Simojic 7th or below to win the Sprint Cup. If that adds up. We'll have to see. But there we go. The gap, remember, was about 7 points between the pair of them. As now we see Gielhead closing on Huben, who I think Huben has snuck in the 2025 livery there. You can see the red numbers on the side denoting their class and their position in class. 4th and 5th for the pair of them. As it does look like Whitehead has got Remy Delorme under control down in GD3, so the lead looking a little bit more steady, but a little bit too close for comfort between these two, as Luca Fingard able to muscle his way past Ballet through the corners, but then Ballet uses the straight line speed to absolutely get back alongside him. So they bang doors into turn 1, they come. Fingard has got the inside, but he needs to make sure it doesn't go too deep and outbrake himself. So tempting to do that through the first corner there as he muscles out the baby blue Mustang of Ballet. Goes a little wide through 2 and 3. Oh, Ballet has a little launch up the inside. This is the battle for 9th. So not a whole lot at stake other than 2 points here. You never know, could mean the world to either of them, especially for Fingard, who wants to end his season on a high. Desperately wanted to drive the Lamborghini Huracan, but unfortunately the survey said he had to stick with the Porsche because he didn't have the Huracan on there because it was added mid-season, so the setting didn't seem to be allowing him to change car as he desired. You see the rest of the GT3 pack very close together, and Grigoletto now fancies moving up to P2. This could be crucial for his Sprint Cup's hopes here. Will Baldwin do Jene Simoncic a favour and hold up Grigoletto and try and keep Simoncic's hopes in the Sprint Cup alive? Although De Buono is starting to streak away in the darkness here. Remember, all these drivers will almost certainly have to do a pit stop here to get to the end. So I don't think this is like Interlagos where you can sort of fuel save as you go without having to pit. You are going to have, in an hour-long race, to pit with at least 20, 15 minutes to go or something like that in Hypercar and GT3 for that matter as well. So I'm interested to see who decides to change tyres. Qatar very heavy on tyres. There we go as Grigoletto gets all over the curve just going to turn 6. And you can see Hoopen got very, very close there. So let's see a replay of what just happened here. Down they go out of 5 towards turn 6, or this might be a bit later in that. This is turn 10, sorry. Grigoletto all over the back there, and it looks a little bit less dramatic from the off-board angle, but still very, very lucky to hold on there and not lose out to Hoopen. Bessier, by the way, is closed within 2/10 of Remy Delorme in the fight for second. So now that Whitehead has started to get comfortable here, Remy Delorme is falling into the clutches of his fellow countryman and fellow Aston Martin driver. But look at this, still side by side. Are these two ever separated? There we go. Ballet gets the inside line then. These are going to be difficult for the hypercars to lap, but they're still fighting each other and going side by side at every other corner here. As there we go, Fabian Ballet streaks around the outside as they now go through the final sector there. Just enough space. Finkard does it, a little bit of a dive bomb into turn 10. Can he make that one stick? Oh, just about, as Ballet has to go a little bit off track there. And then goes very, very wide to leave enough space and then cut back underneath through, this must be turn 7, sorry. I always get turn 6 and turn 10 mixed up here because they're both sort of left-hand hairpins. And here are our 4 leaders then. So Whitehead, followed by Delorme, followed by Bessier, followed by Thomas Lydon, with Schindler dropping nearly 2 seconds off this pack now. This is turning into a bit of a nightmare for Patrick Schindler, but a dream for Whitehead as long as he can keep these 3 behind him. Could be on for a 3rd win in a row. There you go. And oh, Lydon gets very, very far off track as he gets destabilized over the curb there. Rejoins. Just coming into the final corner there. So that was through turn 15. He had that moment there. And Bessier is very, very close now to the back of Remy Delorme. You can see Delorme in the green Aston Martin, Bessier in the blue Heart of Racing one. 27 versus the 777. And Bessier decides to go for the outside here. The Aston's late on the brakes. No way through though. Bessier is going to have to wait for a better opportunity here. And this is going to allow Lydon to close back in on the rear of both of them. The BMW we saw at Monza has excellent acceleration and straight line speed, but the Aston Martin very, very good through the fast flowing corners. And then the Ferrari is sort of the jack of all trades sort of cars. There we go, well over the curb and has to slow right down, does Marin Bessier, and that one mistake was all it took to hand 3rd to Lydon. Lydon now starts to push out Marin Bessier to hold on to that position. So Bessier, he's had the speed in spades, but he's not had the consistency so far this season. Let's see the aerial shot of it here. Does the rear just get away from him? He gets on the brakes, just avoids the gravel on the exit there through turn 4 and 5. And one position lost, but it could have been significantly worse. And in fact, it is worse now as Marin Bessier goes well off track and has to rejoin there through to turn 9, I believe. Yeah, he's now falling back into the clutches of Schindler. So is it those old tyre wear woes starting to kick in for Marin Bessier as the rears are just starting to die? Only 10 minutes in as well. It could be an early pit stop for fresh tyres for Marin Bessier. Marius Nikolai asks, can we see the lap times from the GT3 class? They are lapping, I believe, in the 157s at the moment, if I was to guess, because poles are 155.3 and they've got a lot more fuel on board now. So yeah, 156.7 is the fastest lap. So yeah, 157, I wasn't far off. As Nicolas Domino, sorry, informs me. Huben is in fourth at the moment in the race, not in the broadcast direction. There we go. The 10-minute remaining mark, 10 minutes elapsed mark has been met. So we've got 50 more minutes to go in our final sprint race, our penultimate round of the season here in the VMS Platinum Split. As Bessier goes a little wide out of turn 1 again. And now Patrick Schindler, who's had to go backwards at the start of this race, will sense an urgent need to try and put the move on Bessier. There you can see Cam Cripps has fallen behind Rodriguez in the background as well. But here are the leaders in Hypercar. They're caught up to Fabien Ballet and I believe Luca Finkard as well. And Baldwin is now all over the back of De Bueno, taking advantage of that distraction. All of our top 5, almost a second. There's nothing splitting them apart here. It's De Bueno, Baldwin, Grigoletto, Huben, and Gielhed all arriving as one, as Hoy now definitely tries to go around the outside of Ballet. Gielhed goes a little bit off track through turn 6. So now go uphill towards turn 7 now. Look at this Baldwin with a great opportunity as they see Callum Cripps and Rodriguez fighting ahead of them. But now you see Huben here. This is a Grigoletto, sorry. Huben is behind, and there we go. Almost an opportunity. Oh, as he hits the back of Baldwin there. So they have to go right to a stop to not hit the Porsche 911 of Callum Cripps there. I don't know how they've all survived that one, as now Hoyer fancies going for a moving chicane here as well. So now we've got 6 cars all bunched up together, fighting for the Hypercar lead. But none of them switching positions here. Baldwin taking a lot of risks to keep De Bueno in sight here. Can't afford to lose ground at this early phase of the race. There's Seb Wunsch as they split either side. Into the final corner they come, and Grigoletto sizing our 2 leaders up here. Can he get the run? Oh, and Wunsch has to get well off the bottom there as he nearly spins it around. Baldwin is right in the wheel tracks of De Bueno. They're all trying to get slipstream off each other, and the GT3s. Baldwin goes all the way to the inside, tries to take the lead, and is just prevented from doing so by De Bueno, as they now have to go either side of Luke Whitehead, but De Bueno is held up there. Baldwin plays it perfectly and gets his way into the lead, thanks to the Ferrari of Luke Whitehead appearing at exactly the right moment for him and the wrong moment for Marco De Bueno there. So James Baldwin fantastically reasserts himself into the lead that he lost at the very start of opening lap of the race. And now De Bueno will have to worry about the similar number 50 Ferrari of Grigoletto that is closing upon him. But Huben also fancies stealing the sprint cup, or allowing SimGrid a better chance of stealing the sprint cup from Grigoletto here. So yeah, while Grigoletto wanted to gain a position, he's got to make sure he doesn't lose it here as well. You can see the permutations there. He is third at the moment. SimGrid, I believe, is still in 8th, some distance behind all of these drivers then. Fighting away, I believe, with Daniele Farinelli. There he is, just in the background there. Still in 8th position behind Farinelli by about 2 seconds there. So SimGrid has cleared the traffic cleanly at least. How has this affected? There we go, Leiden now starting to fend off a resurgent-looking Marine Bessier as it's turning into a fight for second here. Whitehead has really been able to split off through the pack in that first round of being lapped by the Hypercars. It certainly won't be the last at Lusail International here. Continue under the lights. What a move, says Shiny, regarding Baldwin's overtake there. But yes, Luke Whitehead, he doesn't have to worry about what happens behind as long as he wins the race there. As we see, is that Mikolaj Hatrishki now making his way through the GT3 field. Yes, he's not had a great start here. He's about 10 seconds behind Paul Lepage. I think 4 or 5 seconds behind SimGrid then. So yeah, Hatrishki has had a bit of a nightmare start here, but it's a bit too far back to get any replays. As we see, Bessier has a little think about a move on Leiden. Delorme has to move aside as well. And there is Schindler. Just 7/10 behind. He's held off Wunsch at least, but it's clear this is not a Mustang track. Qatar International Circuit, or Lusail International, I should say. And now, Leiden in that BMW wants to set up a move on Remy Delorme Delorme, of course, who has peaked at the right time this season. He's fighting with Leiden, I believe, in the overall GD3 standings. Yes, Remy Delorme is 6th, Thomas Leiden 8th, with Timotej Andonovski in between them. So they are about 4 points apart overall. So this is absolutely critical for Remy Delorme if he wants any chance of finishing in the top 5, top 4 overall to hold that BMW at bay here. But Leiden, of course, he's had to miss a number of rounds, but whenever he's shown up, he has done a pretty fantastic job. 2nd in the endurance race at Fuji, and he was 3rd in the race at Monza as well, behind Schindler and Whitehead. Our two title protagonists, of course, is Huben and Gielhed starting to put pressure on Grigoletto here, and that is distracting Grigoletto from trying to make a risky move on De Buono ahead of him, as now you can see Baldwin, with the pace that he's got underneath him in that Toyota, starting to stretch his legs. That will be encouraging for Hutrushki at the back of the hypercar pack, trying to catch that 10 seconds back up to the Lepere and Simoncic. Okay, Hutrushki has that kind of pace that Baldwin has. That could be bad news for Simoncic later in this race. As we see yellow flag somewhere out on track, I think one of the GD3s near the back of the pack has hit trouble. But no action up front as of yet. You can tell by the way Huben is using the 2025 Ferrari livery, because it's a very different shade, a bit more vibrant than the 2024 livery. So a bit more higher contrast on it, it must be said, in these, particularly notable in these under the lights in the darkness here. As you see Leiden still shadowing Remy Delorme. Nobody near the front has hit trouble in GD3, but there's a big gap behind Seb Funch to Callum Crooks Rodriguez, both fighting over P6. And there is Fingard and Ballet still close together, so neither of them have hit trouble, we don't think. Luca Fingard running in 10th and last, but still looking to get a point out of this one. And if he does indeed switch to the Lamborghini, we'll be hoping to consolidate on those points in the final round at Circuit de la Sarthe. So insane to think we're nearly at the end of the season, of course, with 42 minutes left to go in this penultimate round, our final Sprint Cup round at Qatar. At the moment, Grigoletto and Whitehead, both driving for Ferraris, funnily enough, would be our champions in both classes. But Patrick Schindler could be playing the long game here, could be using fuel and virtual energy later in the race. Everybody on mediums, apart from Baldwin and Huben, that have gone for mixed sets, I believe. Is that hards at the rears, mediums at the fronts? Let's see if Nicolas Domino, broadcaster director, can confirm. Okay, hards on the left-hand side of the front, and then mediums everywhere else. That seems to be what I'm getting from that. So that is interesting, but that means that suggests that Baldwin and Huben will be trying to get to the end without changing tyres at the pit stop. Huben has used a lot of virtual energy to try and put pressure on Grigoletto here, interestingly. Gielhed has used even more, though, so he will be stopping surely before the rest of them, whereas Hutrushki obviously has done a bit less of the distance in the race. Simoncic is sort of falling in line with everybody else here, interestingly. So we'll have to see if De Buono and Grigoletto are the ones that have saved the most virtual energy in the field so far. So that suggests they might try and eke it an extra lap, depending on how they play this for the next 40 minutes or so. This is, of course, roughly what Sven Gielhed did. Remember, fighting against Henrik Gamble, came out behind, having hit a bit, sort of hit earlier than Simoncic, who won, but after Gamble, to the point that he got undercut and then had a collision with Gamble that was somewhat controversial. Gamble came off the worst of it, but it was deemed a racing incident. Of course, Gielhed is on a run of podium finishes lately, isn't he, in hypercar? He was, let's remind ourselves, 2nd in round 4 at Sebring, 3rd in round 3 at Bahrain, 3rd in round 5 at Monza, and then 2nd last time out. Another career equaling best result, this time on the road, of course, whereas Sebring, he was promoted post-race, if I'm not mistaken, following a penalty for, was it Baldwin or somebody else? I Chan spun off at the end, that's all I remember. But yeah, Geelhead has certainly really gotten things together in this middle phase of the season, which is why he's running third in the Sprint Cup, ahead of Huben by 9 points at the moment, with Geelhead fifth, Huben fourth. Huben would gain only 2 points on him, which is not enough to change the fate of those $15. Whitehead, interestingly, is not really broken away from Delorme, despite huge pressure from Leiden and Bessier, who are sort of fighting each other as well. Whitehead has just been doing his own race. He has been slowly caught by the Aston and the BMW. So it'd be fascinating to see if Whitehead is trying to go longer than those around him, which is what he did at Spa, of course, did the extra lap compared to everybody else in the Mustangs. Or if he is genuinely struggling for pace here, which would be uncharacteristic. We don't know of any issues that the Ferrari has had with the latest update. Definitely feels like Whitehead, the Ferrari esports driver, of course, who's represented them in a couple of different games, including, I believe, Assetto Corsa as well. So really shone in these last couple of events, as now Fingard is being lapped by the leaders once again, as Baldwin is pulled nearly 2 seconds clear of De Bueno, so it's turning into a fight for second, as Grigoletto has got Huben and Geelhead for very, very close company, and they don't seem to be disappearing from his rearview mirrors anytime soon. So Grigoletto still in a Sprint Cup winning position. Indeed, he would be in a position to take a substantial lead as well in the overall championship if he finished where he was, with Leds tied up 8, but you get 4 points for 8th and then 15 points. So it'd be an 11-point swing, and he's about 4 points behind. So yes, that would be a 8-point lead going into Circuit de la Sarthe in the finale at Le Mans for Grigoletto to finish like this. Still 38 minutes left to go. As you see, Baldwin is just absolutely flying out there, having a fantastic time, having taken advantage of the GD3 traffic earlier on. He has really profited, while those behind have been fighting with each other, allowing him to break away. Bessier, by the way, less than 2 tenths behind Leiden, keeping the pressure on in that fight for third. Good to see Marin Bessier has actually kept things under control. We're so used to seeing him fight for the podium and then hit trouble later in the race, but he has, in recent history, become a real factor ever since the breakthrough was getting that podium at Bahrain. He had a couple of bad races after that, but then was 4th at Spa. So it's been up and down from Marin Bessier, who's 9th in the overall championship, tied on points with Thomas Leiden, by the way, who he's fighting with immediately for position. So this is sort of a fight for 7th in the points, with the absence of Antonovsky just ahead of them on 51 points, of course. Anyway, back to our fight for second. And it is the 2 number 50 Ferraris, followed by the 51 of Huben and the 83 of Geelhead. So Toyota leading up front. Baldwin looking to take his second sprint win of the season. In terms of championship permutations, it's already about Grigoletto versus Simoncic. We'll have to see if Simoncic can catch up to Farinelli as well. That will be fascinating to see further down the pack. At the moment, no sign of any movement, I don't think, unless Nicolas Domino knows more than I do. But here come, as Michel Rodriguez is about to be lapped by our front runners here. They all move to the right-hand side. They aren't going to catch Leiden quite before they get to the braking zone. And that's going to hold up De Bueno as Huben dies underneath Bessier. And there we go. Once again, De Bueno has to go around the outside as Huben looks up the inside of Grigoletto. Nearly makes contact there for turn 2. And that was a bit of a scary moment for Grigoletto. Nearly saw his Sprint Cup hopes and overall championship hopes disappear in an instant there as Whitehead makes room for the sister Ferraris there. Geelhead just nipping through too. Very close moment there. It seems that's going to be where most of the action is going to be. It's going to be at the pit stops, and it's going to be when the hypercars have to lap the GD3s without making contact with either them or each other. look at the lead. Baldwin starting to truly stretch those legs. Nearly 3.5 seconds clear of De Bono now. As De Bono well and truly having to get defensive and mind that virtual energy as well. If he's having to use more than is ideal, he might have to pit earlier than he wants to, which could lead to him getting overcut as other drivers pit a bit later on, put a bit less fuel in, and are able to re-emerge in front of him. Whitehead briefly led DeLorme by a second there. That's the biggest that lead I think has been in a while, as the GT3 leaders ever so slightly starting to spread out here. Apart from, of course, Patrick Schindler, who's determined. As we see there, is that the 51 of Paul Lepere just trying to slot in between the two and breaking up the fight. He's about 2.9 seconds now behind Simoncic. So Simoncic will breathe a sigh of relief. He's dealt with the traffic well here, but still, Barinelli's tantalizingly beyond his reach here. 2 seconds out. And it would help him so much in the Sprint Cup Championship if he could just get into 7th position here, while Grigoletto is stuck behind De Bono. Reminder then of what they all have to do. Betts Racing number 34 says the track limits are really hard here. And he also says the race is really tight in both categories. He's certainly not wrong there. As you see, the statistics for Simoncic, he's going to need Grigoletto to hit trouble if he's stuck down in 8th, doesn't he? And yeah, he would really need Grigoletto to drop to 5th. Because Grigoletto in 3rd just needs Simoncic outside the top 5 to 6 or so. Because the difference between 3rd and 7th would be enough to make up the gap, the 7-point gap that he needs. Because you get 15 points for 3rd and 5 for 7th, so that'd be a 10-point swing. So yeah, Grigoletto's still looking good at the moment, but not looking comfortable, crucially, as we're nearly at half distance now. And Patrick Schindler trying to keep his hopes alive. It's still stuck behind Leiden and Bessier here, and that's stopping him even getting on the podium. And Whitehead really knows he doesn't have to do anything silly here, but Bessier makes a mistake on the exit through 15 there. Into 16 they come, and Schindler could get the run here in that Mustang. This is his best opportunity in a while to challenge that Aston Martin as they go into the slipstream. Is the Aston Martin set up for straight line speed? Bessier defends to the inside here, desperate to hold on to that 4th position as here comes Baldwin. Baldwin will not want any part of this battle whatsoever. Want to clear it by the time he gets on the brakes. He's unfortunately going to have to split them up here to negotiate them. That was Hitrushki, of course, because yes, Baldwin is significantly further up the road. Hitrushki has actually fallen 24 seconds behind Paul Lepere. So he's actually not had a good run of things in the second of our number 7 Toyotas. Annoyingly, they both use the same number, so I got them mixed up there. And given the lead Baldwin has, I thought he's lapping it again already. As look in the background, and just about make out the Ferrari of De Bono. So actually stretched that a little bit of a gap of a second to Grigoletto now. Interesting to see the virtual energy being used here. Looks like we still can't change the livery number. Crazy, says Im Jagot. Martin Vindis says, yeah, custom liveries. But that's coming next season, surely. As we see Gilhead on 21%, about 10% less than all those around him. So he can maybe do about 5 or 6 more laps maximum, as we see Seb Wunsch has he come into the pits. And he's going around the outside of Vingard here. And look, the Domino, can you tell me if Seb Wunsch has made a mistake or if he's gone into the pits? Okay. Well, I would assume pit stop then, given the way he's squeezed past Vingard here. There we go. 1 pit stop. There we go. So Seb Wunsch, at just about half distance, is the first of our GT3s to pull the trigger And he was behind Schindler as well, so he's trying to get the undercut on Patrick Schindler, whereas everybody else will be hoping for the overcut, having to put in less fuel here. But the lap times of Wunsch could be very, very fascinating here. Oh, as Fingard loses the rear end, he's going to be able to hold on to that one. Nope, he's arrived backwards into the AstroTurf there and spins facing the wrong way down the track. So here we go. He gets on the curb. This is through, I believe, 4 and 5 into 5. As we see more yellow flags out on track. No, this is the final sector, sorry. Yeah, the back end just completely loops around him. It's almost exactly what happened 2 weeks ago at Spa through Blanchimont. This time through turn 14 at Losail. Finger now 21 seconds down on Wunsch, but thankfully for him, still in the race. As you see the gaps, still very tight at the top. As our front runners are doing an excellent job here. Delorme still just about keeping Whitehead in arm's length here, which is a significantly big improvement on Spa, where Whitehead by the end of the race was about 13 seconds ahead, I think, given the pace that he had after as the race went on. Whitehead actually had a bit of damage in that first stint, as in come Simoncic and Hoyer. So they are rolling the dice at half distance here. Hoyer will obviously get out first, was running in 6th, now drops to 8th. And Simoncic, similarly, is going to come out 2. Now, here's the interesting thing. Will Michi Hoyer move aside to help his friend and former teammate, Jene Simoncic, in the Sprint Cup Championship against Fabio Grigoletto? 7th place would still not be enough. That would be Grigoletto in the title-winning territory. But it could make a big difference here if this undercut works. As you can see there, you would need 5th. And it really depends where he comes out relative to Geelhead then, I guess. Still quite a bit to play out here. And as we see, plenty of grandstand. And there is Simoncic. Now we see Rodriguez goes up to 5th because I believe Thomas Leiden is in the pits. There we go. So Leiden pits from what was 3rd position. In come Grigoletto and De Buono here. In reverse order, of course, so that will hand 2nd to Huben. Geelhead actually going a lot longer than I think we anticipated here, as they're just stuck behind Fabian Ballet as they pit. Geelhead right behind Niklaus Huben as expected here, and you can see Baldwin has got the most virtual engineering. He's not in danger of being undercut, so he is going to stay out a little bit longer. It's Paul Lepere now, having stayed out, and moves up to P5. But where are Grigoletto and De Buono going to emerge? That's going to be fascinating to see. They should be all side by side. They come out. The 2 identical number 50 Ferraris, I believe. De Buono on the outside is just ahead there as Grigoletto has to get off the throttle. It's going to cost him a little bit of time. Hoyer there, still coming around the final corner. As out of the pits they come. De Buono in 7th position. Behind Farinelli and Lepere. Still ahead, crucially, of Grigoletto here. So this is where they've got to pump in those times to make sure they stay ahead of Huben and Geelhead. And Huben is really on an in-lap here. You can tell he's really start to try and close the gap to Baldwin in front of him. As meanwhile, in GD3, we've still got our top 4 yet to pit. Whitehead, Delorme, Bessier, and Schindler. Be interested to see where Leiden has come out relative to Wunsch. As there is Romy Delorme, still within a second of Whitehead. And there's Leiden in 8th with Wunsch. Wunsch is ahead of him, so Wunsch has got a big undercut here. And that's, of course, the thing that a lot of our frontrunners will be fearing. Baldwin is in from the lead. And that's going to allow Huben to temporarily take the lead. But Geelhead is all over the back of him. Can Sven Geelhead in a fight, of course, with Huben for 3rd in the Sprint Cup. Needs to stay ahead. And they are, of course, also fighting for 3rd overall. Although with the situation reversed, with Huben leading Geelhead by a number of points. There's Daniele Farinelli. So this, in theory, should hand Hoyer and Simoncic an extra position as Baldwin is exiting. Yeah, there we go. The gap between Huben and Geelhead, 20 points in the overall standing. So crucial for Geelhead to get within about 15, 18 points. That would be gold dust for him going into Circuit de la Sarthe. As here comes Farinelli through. Goes Hutrushki, I think, is about to be set a lap down, having pit by Di Buono and Grigoletto. There's Hoyer coming through, and will Simoncic get past Farinelli as well? It's going to be close. Farinelli gets on the power. Simoncic breezes around the outside, and Yoni Simoncic goes up to 9th. That should be a net 7th position, all told. So if he finishes 7th, he needs Grigoletto to finish in 4th or worse here. Gillard still stuck behind Huben, by the way, as we see the replay interface briefly pop up there, but disappears. This is going to be really, really tense to see how this pit cycle filters out here. As we see, whoa! Late call there from Huben, who slides up the rear tires at the final corner, and Gillard tucks in right behind him, clinging to him like glue. So Baldwin should reassert the lead, because I don't think Lapierre's got very much left in the tank. Baldwin will have to lap Thomas Lydon here, going through the final sector now. And Paul Lepere does continue, so Lepere will lead a lap. Here's his yellow flag somewhere out on track. Somebody has hit trouble. Ooh, somebody in the runoff there. Who was that? Was it Hutrushki? His miserable day continues then. While Huben Gillard filtering back into the pack. Yes, I think it was just over the curb. Whoa, big crash for Hutrushki. And oh, has he been disconnected at the same time as well? Because he has gone well beyond the wall and the runoff there. And I think that's the end of Mikolaj Hutrushki's day, sadly. As out the pits comes Huben and Gillard in 5th and 6th positions, respectively. So Gillard is, I think, just ahead of Michi Hoyer then. Yeah, Hoyer's undercut attempt didn't quite work out there. He is still in a net 6th position. But where Lepere filters out, that will be fascinating. I wonder if the overcut is going to work for him or not. But in the evidence of so far, I'm a bit skeptical, as now we see that's Lepere in the lead, having to clear Rodriguez. GD3 is going a lot longer into the race than I think many expected. Whitehead, DeLorme, Bessier, and Schindler, they could be in danger of being undercut unless Luke Whitehead knows something that we don't. Because we saw Wunsch being able to breeze past, wasn't he? Past Leiden. Rigoletto still 4/10 behind Di Buono. What should be a net 3rd position. Still enough for the Sprint Cup title. And Whitehead still doing enough for his Sprint Cup title too. But Schindler, let's not forget, is less than 2 seconds behind him. It is so tense. The two Aston Martins in between. But they are making all the difference, well, even more than the difference right now, because it is essentially winner takes all, given that they are 6 points apart at the top of the table. I wonder if Lepere is trying to go to the end here. That would be ambitious. I'm not sure he's got the virtual energy to enable him to do so, though. Yep, 21%. Ooh, 21 minutes to go. You know what? The Frenchman could be onto something here. It would be a bold gamble, and he wouldn't have much tyres left if he tried it. But let's see how this plays out. 21 seconds to Baldwin. And now, of course, he's got to lap our 4 front runners who are all yet to pit, at least for the time being. Will they pit this time around, though? We know Rodriguez yet to pit either, so it should be Wunsch in a net 5th or 4th at the moment. As through goes Lepere past Schindler. Schindler would desperately not want to be held up too much here, because that could really destroy any chance he might have had of stealing the Sprint Cup from Whitehead here. It's now all. Well, that's certainly going to help Baldwin catch Lepere if, yeah, Remy Delorme holds him up like that. That was really just unfortunate, arriving at the fast corners there, as now he's cleared Whitehead. So the fearsome 4, the fantastic 4, you might say, dispensed with. All of them have had very, very strong drives throughout the season. Whitehead, Delorme, Bessier, and Schindler. All of them been on the podium. Only 2 of them have won so far, and that is our 2 title protagonists, Whitehead and Schindler. If it finishes like this, by the way, with Whitehead first, Schindler fourth. That would be a 13-point swing, I believe, for Luke Whitehead, who was 3 points behind. So he would lead the championship in overall in GD3 by 10 points going into the final race of the season. Endurance race at Le Mans, 38 points up for grabs. There's, look at this, Michi Hoyer all over the back of Sven Gielhed, diving up the inside into the first corner, and Gielhed has been caught a little bit unawares there. Maybe a mistake into the final corner. Still side by side. Gielhed's not going to give this up without a fight. Whoa, round goes Gielhed. Contact between the two. Oh dear, would love to see a replay of that as Gielhed rejoins just about safely. Was that a Michi Hoyer not giving enough space with 20 minutes to go, or was that Sven Gielhed sticking his nose in when the battle was already lost? He's quite a way back here. He tries to go up the inside. He's got half a car alongside, but then just sort of understeers. So you've got to say that was on Sven there. And he's now got going just ahead of Farinelli. So this will excite Simoncic, because another chance. He's not far behind Farinelli, I don't think. Or no, he's actually ahead. Simoncic is up to P7, ahead of Gielhed, crucially, in all of that. So in 7th position, he needs Grigoletto in 4th or below. At the moment, Grigoletto is only 4th. So it all depends on Paul Lepaire's ambitious strategy here, how this filters out. So let's just check the maths very, very quickly here. Deone Simoncic, 96 points. Fabio Grigoletto, 89 points. So 7 points between them. Grigoletto would get 12 points for 4th. Simoncic would get, I believe, 5 points for 7th. But look at this. What has happened here? This looks like is Baldwin been absolutely caught here by Marco De Bueno, having pit a lot later. He's got a bit more virtual energy. He's pulling to the outside here, trying to challenge into the first corner. De Bueno looking for revenge after losing it early on. And round the outside of James Baldwin he goes, the Italian back into 2nd position. And now Grigoletto, crucially, is in this fight for 2nd position once more as well, and it's got real title permutations here. Grigoletto is in a position where he may have to make the move to win the championship. Yep, I think if he finishes 4th, he'd need Simoncic 8th or below. Simoncic is 7th at the moment, so at the moment, Deone Simoncic would win this title by a narrow margin of, I believe, just 2 points. Grigoletto will be aware of that as he sees Baldwin starting to struggle in front of him. And this is unusual. Baldwin did seem to be running away in the first stint. Maybe he didn't change his tires, and that's the explanation here. But you can see De Bueno starting to pull away, and this fighting is really helping Paul Lepere, who seems committed to staying out at this phase. We're in for a thrilling finish in Hypercar. Whitehead nearly 2 seconds ahead of Delorme, but none of the top 5 actually having pit yet. Are they coming to the same conclusion as Lepere? They can stretch out the field here. I would be very surprised if they can get beyond the next 7 more minutes in that fuel tank in GD3. I think they've got to come in at some point or other. And when they do, where are they going to count relative to Wunsch? 14% for Lepere. Oh, it's going to be tight here with 17 minutes left to go. And speaking of tight, here comes Fabio Grigoletto, tucked up right behind that Toyota then. They go across the start-finish straight. This is mission critical for Fabio Grigoletto. The sprint cup is on the line. He breaks late. He gets up the inside, and now he's just got to make the corner here. And he's through into 3rd and back in a sprint cup title-winning position. Crucial move for Grigoletto. So now he is 3rd with Simoncic 7th or below. The title, it swung the other way then. 15 points for Fabio Grigoletto and just 5 for Simoncic. So Simoncic would be on, I believe, 101 points. Grigoletto would be on 105. So a very, very timely move there. As we cut back to the podium fight in GD3. Whitehead again, starting to stretch his legs. And if he was taking this race easier early on by saving fuel, that would very much suggest he is trying to go to the end here. As you see, with Wunsch actually in the pit stop, he may have jumped Leiden, but he's about 16 seconds behind Cripps. And yeah, all of our top 6 yet to pit then. They may not do so whatsoever. And that could be really Wunsch, Leiden and Ballet outfoxing themselves, thinking they could play it safe on the fuel. And yeah, the circuit where the fuel is, there are a few more places you can save fuel here, admittedly, on entry to some of the faster and tighter corners, particularly 6 and 10. Look at this, De Buono is now always gained about 4 seconds in the last couple of laps on Lepere. He's not given up, but he needs to be gaining more than a second per lap on the Frenchman in order to win the race. As you see Lepere knowing he just has to keep saving virtual energy and fuel, and he could pull off a shock victory here. Lepere, by the way, his best result this season, if I'm not mistaken, is 8th last time out at Spa. Other than that, he's got 2 10th places, so I don't want to say a back marker, but he's certainly been up against it so far this season. Grigolotto now has set his sights on De Buono. He definitely wants to seal this Sprint Cup with a flourish, and that's the problem with De Buono. If he's fighting Grigolotto, then once more it starts to move into Lepere's hands a bit more. He just has to make sure he's got the fuel and virtual energy to make it to the end. The tension really building now as we near towards the end game in the round 7 of the season at Losail International, and the final round, the end game of the Sprint Cup, essentially, with, at the moment, Whitehead and Grigolotto doing enough here, as Simoncic, I think, is still down in 7th position in Hypercar, and not making ground into 6th position. Past, oh, there he is. He's got Sven Gielhed actually coming back at him now after his spin. Sven's starting to get a bit held up here, and then there's Luca Finkard in exactly the wrong place for Simoncic, although they both mercifully clear him quickly. But Gielhed, oh, has a big moment as he tries to go around the outside at the final corner there. And now look at this, Farinelli takes advantage of that too to tuck in right behind Sven. So let's see a replay of what just happened as Farinelli continues to challenge there. Around the outside they go. So Sven, I think, is going for the curb here. Goes just a little bit too wide, and then we saw that at Spa in a battle with Simoncic for a second, wasn't it? Where he just got on the curb and actually made contact with the Peugeot. So a very similar incident in this case. 13 minutes left to go. Farinelli not able to get past Gielhed, but that mistake from Gielhed is very much handed third in the Sprint Cup to Huben. The way things are going, it would be 8 for Gielhed, 4 points, and Huben would get 12. So, oh no, that wouldn't be the 9 points that Huben needs, would it? That would be just short, only 8 points. So at the moment, Gielhed would still be taking away $15. At the end of this is now Hoyer. It's all over the back of Huben, so maybe it might be deemed irrelevant anyway, as Hoyer wants to finish in the top 5 in this championship, save a bit of pride. Come the end of the season, he's not really in contention for the Sprint Cup, sadly. So he is going to be outgoing Sprint Cup champion in Hypercar, with Prendergast the outgoing GT3 champion. Look at this, Huben having to get very defensive now. They're about 8.5 seconds behind Baldwin, so it's going to be difficult for them to catch up that gap. I'd love to know what really was happened to Baldwin, because his pace has really disappeared ever since he made his pit stop. Could be that he had to change tyres and it's not worked out, or his tyres just started to wear, maybe. Given that he's got hards on one side and mediums on the other. Up the inside goes Hoyer, a little bit of contact with Nicolas Huben, who he runs out wide, and Michi Hoyer up to 5th then. So that, yeah, there could be some damage we didn't see as well, suggests Nicolas Domino to me in the commentary works for James Baldwin. Either way, he's being dropped from the podium fight now and into Hoyer's hands, actually, with 11 minutes to go. It's not inconceivable that Hoyer could catch him. As there is Patrick Schindler. He is running out of time to really try and wrestle the Sprint Cup lead. Even if he can just overtake one of these Astons in the form of Bessier and Delorme, it could make a big difference in just trying to limit the damage in the overall championship. But for the Sprint Cup, his chances are fading. He would need Whitehead to drop to 8th at the moment. At the moment, he's leading Delorme into the pits. There we go. So looks like Remy Delorme tried to stretch the field for as long as he could, but he is the first of all. Callum Cripps is getting a penalty for cutting the track limits, I believe. So that's going to hurt his chance of finishing in the top 6 here. as in comes, is that Lepere finally coming in from the lead. There we go, so that's going to hand De Buono a lead of only 1.4 seconds though. As we see the rest of the GD3 pack, they cannot get the fuel to last. And does that mean Whitehead, Bessier, Schindler, Rodriguez are all heading for the pit lane soon as well? Well, you've got to say, it was worth trying for Lepere. Sven Gielhed has got a good run here. He's going to go back around the outside of Farinelli, who's got past him in recent history. 10 minutes to go, side by side in the battle for P7. The yellow Ferrari versus the red number 51. Farinelli tries to stretch it around the outside, and luckily Thomas Leiden appears to block Gielhed's path there. So more bad luck for Sven Gielhed in this race. Well, there is Seb Wunsch. He's gone out, oh, just behind Remy Delorme. So they stretch the field enough that the pit stop is short enough due to the lack of fuel they need to take on board to get to the flag. That, oh, Simoncic breezes down the middle, and Wunsch nearly hits the back of Delorme. But Delorme has basically been able to overcut and basically overcome any undercut threat from Seb Wunsch by staying out there. There's Farinelli and Gielhed now going around the outside of Seb Wunsch, who has still got himself up to P6 here. We'll have to see. I'm not sure Rodriguez is going to be able to get to the end, but Whitehead, Bessier, and Schindler will be fascinating here. Because if Schindler's been lifting and coasting behind Bessier, oh, I don't think he has. They're all heading in, and they know they've got to here. So this could be very, very close then with the Aston Martin of Remy Delorme. There it was Rodriguez. Is Rodriguez going to stay out? That's another question to ask. Grigolado's lost a couple of attempts to Buono in the fight for the overall lead, by the way, but he's still looking to seal the Sprint Cup, looking to take back the lead of the overall Hypercar Championship from Jene Simoncic. Less than 10 minutes to go, and it's so crucial for Jene to keep his overall title hopes alive that he holds off Farinelli and Gielhed here. As you can see, Hoyer disappearing in sixth position into the distance. Gielhed back at the inside. Where have our GD3 leaders re-emerged? Whitehead ahead of Bessier, Schindler in third. Delorme has been overcut once again. So Delorme has overcut Wunsch, but then he has been overcut himself by Patrick Schindler. And Bessier, it must be said. So Bessier could be on for a best ever P2 here. 1.3 seconds off of Whitehead. Will he fancy a crack at trying to steal the win off him? Remains to be seen. He's only got 7.5 minutes left to mount a challenge here as Gielhed nearly taps the back of Farinelli through the hairpin there. Simoncic is not getting away here. This could be very, very tense. It has been tense pretty much throughout, really. A couple of good moves here and there. Before the action really kicks off, now might be a good point to do an ad read for some of our sponsors. The SimGrid Platinum Split, by the way, is proudly sponsored by SimGrid, the largest sim racing event hosting platform in the world. Hope community has grown and developed since 2019. There's a link in our description you can click to see our standings as Fingard gets a penalty. That won't affect him. He's at last anyway. So I think he's just trying to get to the end and get a point out of this. Yes, part of the community and see our standings that will be updated hopefully a couple of days once we can verify the result here in Qatar at Losail. Let's look at this. Simoncic still being caught by Farinelli and Gielhed. Gielhed gets a good run. Uses maybe a little bit of virtual energy down the back straight here. As you can see, they're actually catching up to the 51 ahead of them. Is that Huben, sorry, not Hoyer. So they are in a fight for 5th position here, technically. We've got 5th, 6th, and 7th. Oh, out of the way goes Fingard coming out of the pits then. Yeah, of course, with Lepere having pit, that has put Simoncic into 6th place. But let's remind ourselves, 6th position. He would need Grigolato 4th. At the moment, he's 2nd. So it is still not enough Fifth position would again help, but he would need Grigolotto to drop down to third, and Baldwin is about 7 seconds behind him. He's trying to try and go up the inside of Hubin here, who's really starting to struggle here as they go through the middle sector. Hubin is not going to roll over for Yene Semicic. They're still in a fight for the overall championship as well, and Hubin holds his ground late on the brakes from Yene. Full send into the twisty middle sector there, and Farinelli fancies to go Hubin as well as a result of this. Hubin forced wide. Could Simicic be in trouble for that, as they're now all over the back of Yene still as well? And now it's Gilhead's turn to challenge Nicolaus Hubin. So this race has really gone from bad to worse for Nicolaus Hubin. He's just had no pace in this second stint. Oh, Farinelli now trying to relieve Simicic of fifth. Hubin dives up the inside and spins. Oh, and that's Hubin going round and into the wall. That's a hefty hit for Nicolaus Hubin, and that could be his race over there. Luckily, still got all four wheels on. But let's see what just happened there for Nicolaus Hubin, pushing a little bit too hard to get back on terms with Farinelli. Farinelli to the outside there of Simicic. That creates a small gap on the inside, and oh, there's the hit. That's going to be hefty damage. I think Hubin is headed for the pit lane either way. There we go. Hubin is out of the running then. So that's terrible news for him with 4 minutes left to go. That could have been a much better result, and that's really going to hurt him. Really, for Nicolaus Hubin, he is leading the Endurance Cup, but that's really going to hurt him in the overall championship. And a big opportunity now for Gilhead in 7th to close in on him. He's 20 points behind at the moment. He would be gaining a full 5 points. Getting within 15 points, that's dangerous territory for Nicolaus Hubin, who's in his bid to at least hold on to third overall. He is not going to take the $15 for third in the Sprint Cup. That is definitely going the way of Gilhead, the way things are going. In fact, it would anyway, because I think Hubin was the only one that could have beaten Gilhead. So yeah, that's assured for Sven. Grigolotto, by the way, fallen 2 seconds behind De Buono. We're not taught too much about De Buono, but he has been absolutely on it. Today is round the outside of Farinelli goes Gilhead and Daniele Farinelli, who had a great drive late on at Monza to finish in P7. He has had a bit of a tricky season, but nonetheless, he has shown that on his day he can really challenge for the top spots. There's another a P6 up for grabs for Farinelli. If he can just keep Gilhead at bay. Gilhead is up the inside through the final corner though. Can he get the run out of it to challenge? Farinelli is going to defend the middle of the road, snake across to the pit wall, forcing Gilhead to go a long way round. Smart from Farinelli, but Gilhead is very, very fired up to get back into the top 6 here, but Farinelli blocks his path once again. Does he go a little too wide out of turn 1? No, he does not. Leaves the door open into turn 2, and this time the move does work out for Sven Gilhead, who barges his way, forces his way through, but is given just enough room for Farinelli. A bit of cooperation needed there for that one to work then, as we are getting into the dying phases of the race, and Grigolotto is running out of time if he wants to take his 3rd victory of the season. But this would put him in a very, very interesting point in the championship, not just ahead of Yene Simicic, but they would be equal, 2 wins each and 2 second places each in the Sprint Cup, and in fact overall as well. So fascinatingly, if it comes down to a tie, it could come down to 3rd places, I believe. So I have to refresh my memory. I think that might actually go to Grigolotto, if memory serves. It was 3rd last time out at Spa, whereas I don't think... well, actually, no, Yanni's got the 2 second places, doesn't he? So, yeah, well, okay, I'm getting mixed up here. It doesn't matter. The race is about to end. 2 minutes to go. I think we're on the penultimate lap now for De Buono. Let's hope the GT3's put in enough fuel here, because De Buono might be able to force it to go an extra lap than they might have been anticipating. Yeah, nonetheless, Schindler hasn't given up on 2nd position, still a 2nd behind Marin Bessier. Sevunch is tucked in right behind Delorme in the battle for 4th. This is crucial in the battle for 5th in the championship, as Remy Delorme is late charge this season. Him and Sebastian Wunsch just 5 points apart. If Remy Delorme can close a couple of points in on him, it could be anyone's game for 4th position and the prize money that comes with it going into Circuit de la Sarthe. Schindler very, very close to Bessier as we're into the final minute of this race then. So just to recap once again, the Sprint Cup permutations, it will be Grigoletto winning from Simicic with 2nd and 5th. Grigoletto needed to finish 2nd with Simicic 5th or below, which is what's currently happening, unless Michihoya moves over for Jerne Simicic. That would hand it to Jerne. Michihoya, I think, 7 seconds up the road is probably not going to do that in the dying final lap of the race. And Luke Whitehead winning the race would win the Sprint Cup Championship as well as taking the lead in the overall championship. So we're going to see 2 Ferraris take the lead in the overall championship as well as win the Sprint Cup. You see the permutations there. Very simple for Whitehead, win the race, win the championship, and he's ahead of Schindler, which makes it very much academic here. But De Buono, though, is on his final lap. He's just started it, I believe. You can see a bit of traffic blocking Grigoletto's path in the form of, I believe that's Wunsch and Delorme. So Wunsch will also take advantage of that, and the leaders will lap Whitehead, Bessier, and Schindler during this final lap. So that will be a relief to Luke Whitehead if he's indeed low on fuel. And oh, look how badly Grigoletto got held up there by not just Schindler but Bessier now as well. And there's a bit of a gap to Whitehead, so our 2 leaders go side by side. Buono goes through, and this amazingly is going to be De Buono's first win of the season. He had a great start in Monza. He won the United States race at Qatar last season, which was his only win to date in VMS Platinum. It was a commanding win as well. He got set pole position, disappeared off in distance. Very nearly set pole today as well, 9 thousandths behind Baldwin. But in the end, he had the better strategy. He had the pace in that second stint to claw his way back into the lead. Lepaire's gamble failed. He had to pit with 10 minutes left to go. And through the final couple of corners now comes Marco De Buono. Grigoletto will fall just a bit short, but the Sprint Cup title will surely be his, barring something extraordinary here. So into 15 and 16 they come. Very, very close. Go the 2 number 50s. Oh, it's going to be side by side for the winners. De Buono ran out of fuel. Oh, he's running out of virtual energy. You know, side by side to the line. It's Grigoletto that steals the win at the final corner. Did Marco De Buono give that one to his countryman? Well, we'll never know, but it is Grigoletto that takes the Sprint Cup commandingly now with that victory. So we thought Hoyer might move over for Simicic. It turns out it was De Buono who moved over in the end. I think he may have been able to hold on to that one. Also, Luke Whitehead wins just about from Marin Bessier, who takes his best finish in GD3. And Whitehead is our new Sprint Cup champion. The Ferrari Esports driver will be celebrating there. So a historic night here at Lusail International Circuit in Qatar. One more race to go, and it is advantage Grigoletto, advantage Whitehead as they take both victories. But you got a sense that was incredibly magnanimous and unexpected from Marco De Buono to gift the win. Grigoletto now takes 3 victories. I think with Simicic in 5th, Grigoletto would have had it even in 2nd position. But I'm not sure if De Buono knew that or if they were worried about Hoyer moving over as well. As we see Fabien Ballet and Callum Cripps our final finishes. So a good finish for Ballet. It's one of his best finishes of the season in P8 as Callum Cripps takes a couple of points. P9 on his return. So the penalty costing Callum in the end, but nonetheless, a good performance from the Porsche driver. And great to see Callum back on the grid. So there we go. 2 titles decided, but 2 more left to go for the overall and endurance cup. So confirmation of the final results, or the provisional results at least. Luke Whitehead takes victory by just under 3 seconds ahead of Marin Bessier, and it was Whitehead and Bessier that you have to be said, them and Schindler all nailed the strategy today, but Schindler will rue losing those positions early on that gave him so much work to do and handed the Sprint Cup very much into the control of Whitehead. Remy Delorme ended up finishing 4th in the end. He ran 2nd for quite a long while in that race. Sevunch, the undercut, not quite working in his favour. And Thomas Leiden having to pit very early also really cost him as well. But he does just still beat Michel Rodriguez. Long way down was Fabien Ballet, Callum Cripps, and Luca Fingard, who, despite all his misadventures, does get a point for 10th position. So good on Luca, who will take that point forward with him into his total in the final race of the season. Now for Hypercar, Grigoletto drove a strong race from fourth and third on the grid to gain ground, but you got a sense that was Marco De Bono's race to lose, and he only lost it by a narrow margin over the line. It was less than a tenth between them. But yeah, the virtual energy was 0.8, 0.7, I think, for them respectively. So I think that was De Bono moving over. I don't think there's any other way to read that. Baldwin takes his third podium of the season from his third appearance, so he keeps that up from pole position, but the win was on the table there for James. That second stint, the pace was not there. Michi Hoyer had a good recovery to fourth in this race with Jene Simic. He misses out on the Sprint Cup despite going in leading by 7 points. That will be disappointing for him, but nonetheless, he limits the damage in the overall championship. Sven Gilhead is sixth, does take third in the Sprint Cup and the $15 that come with it. Daniele Farinelli is seventh. All the pair, the gamble, pitting late on with less than 10 minutes to go. He finishes eighth, and not getting to the end were Nicolas Huben and Mikolaj Hatrishku. Both had spectacular accidents. So then, let's see if we can tempt... well, there's one driver waiting in the interview room, and it is our GT3 Sprint Cup champion. So let's drag Luke Whitehead in and hear what he has to say about that race. I imagine 3 wins on the bounce. He will be delighted. There we go. As if by magic, somebody had the soundboard ready to go. And it was, of course, our new Sprint Cup champion who's won the last 3 races on the bounce. Who else but Luke Whitehead? Luke, you were under a lot of pressure throughout that race from Remy Delors, Marin Bassir, and Patrick Schindler, of course. But it was cool hand Luke from you today. You very much had it all under control and waited into pit until the fuel tank was nearly empty there. So in the end, it looked very comfortable. How comfortable was it behind the cockpit?
Yeah, well, first off, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you enjoyed the race. Yeah, it definitely wasn't the easiest, that's for sure. Was one of those races where, it was a waiting game to see whose tyres would kind of die first. It's Qatar, a lot of right-handers, a lot of high-speed right-handers. So the left front takes a beating. And yeah, it was all about just trying to keep the tyres alive, for me at least, and trying to also save a bit of energy to get an extra lap out of the stint. Because by default, you usually get 25, and then you have to save a little bit of energy to get the 26th. You can save the 27th, but it's not really worth doing. So it was kind of weighing that up, making sure that the tyres were alive. And yeah, as I say, didn't really have the raw pace in race trim. Could have probably pushed it faster, but my setup was way more understeery than it was in practice, which also didn't help things. I think if it's a little bit more on the nose with the setup, then we would have been faster and it would have been a much easier race. But alas, that wasn't what we had. And obviously the Astons and Mustangs came alive after the halfway point, and it made me a little bit nervous. I was very measured with the hypercars. I kind of made sure I monitored the deltas and knew where I was going to let them go and kind of prepared for it before it happened. And that gave me a lot of breathing room, because that was where I often gained my time, because I didn't have the pace to pull the gap naturally. I just had to make the most of the back markers, not back markers, the hypercars. So we made the most.
Appreciate that, Luke.
Well, we were the back markers, really. So make the most of being the back markers, I suppose. But yeah, we took advantage of them, made sure they cleared us in good spots, lifted where we need to, left an extra, meter or so where we needed to, and yeah, we came home relatively comfortable in the end. Although I think if the race was probably half an hour longer, it would have been a different race. But luckily that wasn't the case. So yeah,
lucky you've only got 2 weeks to wait until the next endurance race at Circuit de
yeah.
Saab.
Well, thankfully, I was going to say, thankfully, Le Mans is probably less bad on its tyres. I think it's more whether your car is draggy or not that's going to help you out. And thankfully, the Ferrari is not very draggy. So, but neither is the Mustang. And it's going to be between me and Paddy. So it's going to be pretty close, I think. But yeah, as I say, the last few races have been good. I've had the momentum, not really put a foot wrong. So, we'll see if we can continue that into Le Mans.
Yeah, I can tell you, you are you come 3 points behind to 7 points ahead of Paddy, as you call him, Patrick Schindler,
Yeah,
going
Patrick.
into that final race of the season. Obviously, Endurance Cup, well, we can, it's very much a whatever happens, happens, isn't it? Because it's based on only 2 races. But overall, you go in with the advantage. You went in with a good 7 point advantage today, and it ended very well for you. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank
You've
you.
got to be feeling confident going into that final race because last time we went to Circuit de la Sarthe in the Platinum Sprint, it was a Ferrari that won as well. Seb Wunsch.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, really. I'm not good at Le Mans. I basically spent the last week doing setups in different cars to try and get good at Le Mans, and also because no one else wanted to do them. So Le Mans is really one of those tracks where it's, you need to have the flow really more than anything else. The car obviously matters; it always does. But if the driver can make the difference at Le Mans, I expect Tommy will be very very strong because he's very good at Le Mans. I have no idea how Patrick will get on. I know the Mustang's pretty good, but hard to drive there. Same with the Ferrari. I think the Ferrari is probably the outright fastest car, but that's on quali trim. And we all know, as we've seen throughout the season, and we saw at Fuji most of all, which was the last endurance race. Race is a very different story, and I don't know what the tire wear's like at that track. Got no idea. If it's as bad as it has been, then it's going to be a difficult afternoon for me. But if it's better, like I hope it will be, obviously there's less corners at them on, fingers crossed, and we might be okay. But all I can do is just do the best I can, prepare as much as I can, and basically do what I've been doing the whole season, and just whatever happens, happens. Just don't make any mistakes. Keep it on the tarmac. That's all we can do.
And final question from me, Luke. As I always ask for our Sprint Cup champions, you've got $60 in the bank already. Have you thought about what you're going to spend it on, or are you going to wait until you get the extra, however many dollars it is for winning the overall championship before you
Well, I'm
decide?
I'm currently saving for a car, so I'm saving for stuff as well. So yeah, just saving really. Gonna be going to Sim Expo, so that's gonna be an expensive trip as well.
Yeah,
So just
$125 for winning the overall championship, and it's 60 for the sprint and endurance cup. So
yeah, I'm being surprisingly sensible with my money. So just gotta keep it in the piggy bank. Let it simmer.
well,
But
that's exactly
yeah,
how you've been driving as well and throughout tonight. So another fabulous win, 3 in a row. Best of luck making it 4 in a row at Circuit de la Sarthe in 2 weeks' time. Always a pleasure talking to you, Luke.
thank you
And
very
congrats
much.
on the
You too.
championship.
Yeah, thank you very much. Take care, guys. See you in 2 weeks.
So as Luke Whitehead departs, fortunately, I don't think anybody else wants to be interviewed by us. I would love to know if Marco De Bono moved over deliberately to hand the win to Grigoletto, as I suspect he did, or if there was genuinely an issue, like he was running out of fuel and he sort of was forced into doing that. But it was a dramatic moment, certainly. But yeah, I think Grigoletto's had to run off immediately after the race. But he says he hopes he will be able to do the interview after the next race. So hopefully we'll hear from Fabio, even if he's not the overall champion, even though he now has a pretty significant lead. Let me just work it out very quickly off the top of my head. A difference between first and fifth. So I think he's gained 15 points on Simic from being 4 points behind. So he's 11 points ahead going into the final race of the season. So once more, it's a two-horse race in the lead of both championships. As I just seen a comment from Karen Cripps. So glad I never have to drive this track again. If it's ever in another series, I'm just not going to do that round. Abomination of a circuit. So yeah, not everybody loves Qatar, but it seems to have treated some a bit better than others. A few comments in the chat. Race Esport Team P2. What a race from Marin Bessier, says Paul GT. So yeah, I think big shout out to Marin Bessier because that was a race he got very, very close to winning. We even heard from Whitehead there that he was under a little bit of pressure. So before we go, there's one more thing we do need to point out before we say goodbye, and that is season 3 qualifying at Spa is about to open up tomorrow, I believe. So let me just find the note that I've been given to remind you. It's just to plug it. Okay, so that is our pre-qualifying at Spa tomorrow. So make sure you look at our links. You get on the Discord server and sign up if you're interested in taking part in Platinum Split or any of our support categories in the Gold or Contender Silver Split. if you are interested in taking part. And I have just got confirmation from Grigoletto that Marco De Bueno did let him through deliberately because they didn't know if Michi Hoyer was going to let Yene pass or not. So in the end, that decision meant that it would have been a moot point if Hoyer had done the move anyway, because Grigoletto was the winner. So incredibly magnanimous, and you could see Tatum Esports working together there at the end of the race. That they very much worked their way into controlling ahead of James Baldwin there, who is no slouch, as we know. So I think that's pretty much all from me. So one more round to go. We, of course, have got the gold split next weekend on August 10th. I believe I'm going to be busy that night, but hopefully we'll have Chris Buxton and company to take you through for the penultimate round there. But for now, I've been Edward Hunter, joined by Nicolas Domino and Ollie Shakespeare, helping us out in the commentary box. Congratulations to Fabio Grigoletto and Luke Whitehead, our new Sprint Cup champions. Just one race to go, and the title is wide open, not just in the main cup, but in the Endurance Cup as well. Who is going to take $125 home with them? Tune in 2 weeks' time at Sega de la South to find out. We hope you enjoyed our race at Qatar tonight. Bye for now.